The chamber was designed to awe, to diminish, to remind every being who entered that they were but a single, fleeting note in a symphony millennia in the making. It was the grand conclave of the Xylosian Consortium, a sphere of polished obsidian suspended in the gravity well between twin suns, its interior walls woven with living light that chronicled the histories of its thousand-member worlds. Here, empires were brokered and species were judged. And today, the species on trial was humanity. They were new, frightfully, embarrassingly new. A species that had barely stopped throwing rocks at each other before stumbling upon the stars. Their arrival on the galactic stage was seen by most as an accident, a cosmic clerical error. They were fragile, soft-skinned bipeds from a chaotic, high-gravity, death world in a forgotten spiral arm of the galaxy. Their technology was a patchwork of elegant theory and brutal application. Their diplomacy was passionate. And to the elder races, passion was just a polite word for instability. The primary opponent to their inclusion was High Ambassador Vorlag of the Cathar Dominion. Vorlag was everything humanity was not. He was ancient, his species having achieved cosmic harmony while humanity's ancestors were still painting on cave walls. His body was a towering, elegant column of crystalline biology, his thoughts broadcast in shimmering, resonant tones that vibrated with the condescension of ages. He saw humans as little more than clever apes, creatures of unchecked emotion and primitive instinct. A danger not because of their strength, but because of their weakness. The human delegate was a young woman named Alara. In a room of biological gods and psychic titans, she seemed impossibly, almost offensively, plain. She wore a simple dark blue uniform, her hair was cut short, and she possessed no visible augments, no psychic shimmer, no genetic markers of superiority. She just sat there, listening, her presence a quiet, unassuming question mark in a room full of exclamations. For hours, Vorlag had dissected humanity. He presented data logs of their wars, their famines, their self-inflicted plagues. He spoke of their short lifespans, their fragile psychologies, their baffling obsession with concepts like hope and sacrifice, which he dismissed as evolutionary coping mechanisms for a species born to suffer. Finally, seeking to land the killing blow, to expose the raw, uncultured core of their being for all to see, he focused his resonant voice directly on Alara. The chamber grew still as the ancient being leaned forward, his crystalline form catching the light of the twin suns. "Tell me, little human," Vorlag's tone was a balm of patronizing pity, the kind one uses for a child who has scraped its knee. He chose his words to be deliberately demeaning, to highlight the chasm between his enlightened state and her primitive origins. "In your short, violent life, have you ever been forced to extinguish a spark, to personally take a life?" The question hung in the air, thick and heavy. It was a trap. If she said yes, she was a barbarian. If she said no, she was a naive child unfit to sit at this table. Vorlag's multifaceted eyes gleamed, certain of his victory. He expected tears or shame or a defiant, angry denial. He did not expect the smile. It started at the corners of her mouth, a slow, subtle, almost imperceptible curve. It was not a smile of joy or amusement. It was the smile of a blacksmith remembering the heat of the forge. It was the smile of a surgeon who knows exactly where to cut. It was a smile of grim, absolute, and terrifying acceptance. As the smile reached her eyes, they did not sparkle with mirth. They hardened into something ancient, something that held the cold, clear light of a distant supernova. And then the room, a chamber designed for the thunderous proclamations of empires, went quiet. It was not a respectful silence. It was the silence of a packed stadium after a champion is knocked out by an unknown challenger. It was the silence of a predator that has just realized the creature it was hunting is not prey. It was the sudden, breathless, heart-stopping silence of a battlefield, the moment after the first shell hits and before the world erupts into chaos. Vorlag did not understand. He saw only a simple human girl smiling. But the others in the room, the insectoid Hishans whose hive minds had parsed humanity's entire unedited history, the silicon-based shill who processed reality in pure, cold logic, the ancient gas giants who had watched Saul's star burn for eons, they understood. They had seen the raw data. They knew what that smile meant. Vorlag had just asked a storm if it had ever rained. He had asked a star if it had ever burned. He had asked a survivor of a death world if she had ever had to kill to survive. And in her smile, he received an answer more profound and more chilling than any word she could have spoken. It was an answer that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Because in that moment, the Consortium learned the first, most brutal truth about humanity. Their greatest weakness was, and always had been, their most terrifying strength. What Vorlag and his kind had failed to comprehend is a universal law that you must burn into the core of your being. It is the first principle of power, resilience, and survival in this galaxy or any other. And it is this: true peace is not the absence of conflict. True peace is the ability to win any conflict and the wisdom to choose not to. The elder races of the Consortium had achieved a state of what they called post-conflict evolution. They had systematically bred aggression out of their genomes. They had replaced instinct with logic, passion with psychic serenity. They viewed violence as a primitive flaw, a bug in the code of sentience that they had long ago patched. They lived in a state of perpetual, unchallenged peace, and they had grown weak. Their peace was not a choice, it was a limitation. It was the peace of a declawed cat, of a caged bird. It was the peace of the fragile, the stagnant, and the unprepared. They had forgotten the brutal truth that nature itself teaches. A creature that cannot fight for its life cannot truly be said to be alive. It is merely existing, a passive object waiting for an external force to act upon it. This is the fatal assumption that infects so many. You believe that to be good, you must be harmless. You believe that to be spiritual or enlightened, you must be soft. You believe that to be civilized, you must amputate the part of you that knows how to snarl, how to bite, how to fight for your territory. You have been told that your anger, your aggression, your capacity for ferocity are toxins to be cleansed, not tools to be mastered. Ilara's smile was the ultimate refutation of this lie. Her smile did not say, "I am a monster." It said, "I have a monster inside of me. I have met it. I have trained it. I have mastered it. And it will only be unleashed on my command for a purpose I deem worthy. So I suggest you choose your next words very, very carefully." Let's be brutally honest. You are not afraid of the monster inside you. You are afraid you cannot control it, so you starve it. You lock it in the basement of your psyche and pretend it doesn't exist. But this doesn't make it go away. It only makes it feral. And when a true crisis hits, a real threat to your livelihood, your family, your very survival, you will find yourself either defenseless or you will unleash a creature so starved and enraged that it consumes you along with your enemy. The human path, the path Ilara represented, is different. It is the path of integration. It is the path of acknowledging the darkness within not as an enemy but as a source of immense primal power. It's the engine. Your reason, your morality, your discipline, that is the steering wheel. A car with no engine goes nowhere. A car with no steering wheel crashes and burns. You need both. Think of the Orion siege, a footnote in the Consortium's sanitized records, but a foundational myth for Ilara's generation. The colony on Orion IV was a peaceful outpost. It was populated by botanists, atmospheric engineers, poets, and teachers. They were precisely the kind of enlightened humans the Consortium might have approved of. They had left the wars and struggles of Earth behind. They were, for all intents and purposes, harmless. Then the Ravagers came, a fleet of interstellar pirates, a species that had never bothered with the pretense of civilization. They saw the colony as a soft target, a pantry to be raided. The consortium was light years away. No help was coming. According to consortium doctrine, the colonists of Orion IV should have surrendered. They should have submitted to their fate, preserving their moral purity even in death and subjugation. They did not. Something ancient awoke in them. The botanist who had spent her life nurturing delicate alien flora learned to recalibrate atmospheric nitrogen processors to create localized toxic zones. The engineer who designed elegant city infrastructure figured out how to turn geothermal drills into seismic weapons that could tear a Ravager landing craft in half from below. The quiet historian who knew the bloody tales of Earth's past became the chief strategist, using ancient guerrilla tactics from Sun Tzu and Genghis Khan against an enemy with advanced energy weapons. They turned farm equipment into armored vehicles. They converted communication arrays into pulse cannons. They fought, not with the clean, sterile precision of a starship battle, but with dirt and blood and improvised explosives. They fought in the tunnels of their own colony, in the fields they had so lovingly cultivated. They became the very thing they thought they had left behind: warriors. Ilara was a child then, just 10 years old. She wasn't a soldier. She was a runner, a scout, moving through ventilation shafts too small for adults, carrying data slates and medical supplies. But she saw it all. She saw her gentle, kind neighbors transform. She saw them hold the line, not for glory, not for empire, but for each other, for their children. And one day, cornered in a medical bay with a wounded doctor and 3 other children, a lone Ravager scavenger broke through the door. The doctor was unconscious. The Ravager was large, armored, and raised its plasma weapon. There was no one else, just 10-year-old Ilara. In her hand, she held not a toy, but a high-density surgical laser the doctor had been using. It wasn't a weapon. It was a tool. But in that moment, the distinction ceased to exist. She didn't scream, she didn't cry. She remembered her father, a historian, telling her a story about ancient Spartans. Come back with your shield or on it. She understood what it meant. There is a point where retreat is no longer an option. There is a point where the only path forward is through. That is what Vorlag saw in her smile. He saw the memory of a 10-year-old girl who learned the galaxy's most brutal lesson: that survival is not given, it is taken, and the price is sometimes absolute. The second brutal truth that Smile conveyed is that your history is not your burden, it is your arsenal. The elder races of the consortium viewed humanity's past with a mixture of horror and pity. A relentless, unbroken chain of conflict, tribe against tribe, nation against nation, ideology against ideology. Plagues that wiped out 1/3 of their population. Ice ages that forced them to the brink of extinction. World wars that set their entire planet ablaze. To the Cathar, this was evidence of a deeply flawed design. A chaotic, unstable species, forever at war with its environment and itself. They were wrong. It wasn't a flaw, it was a furnace. Most sentient life in the consortium had evolved on what humanity would classify as garden worlds. Planets with stable climates, low gravity, minimal predators, and abundant resources. Their evolutionary path was one of slow, steady intellectual and social development. They had the luxury of contemplation. Their challenges were abstract, philosophical. Humanity had no such luxury. Earth was a cosmic gladiator school, a relentless high-pressure crucible that hammered and forged life with brutal efficiency. To survive on Earth was to be a master of adaptation. You had to endure scorching heat and freezing cold. You had to outwit predators that were faster, stronger, and armed with claws and fangs. You had to survive droughts, floods, earthquakes, and volcanoes. And most terrifyingly of all, you had to survive other humans. Every other species in the galaxy had, at most, a handful of dangerous predators on their homeworld. Humanity was unique. For millennia, humanity's single greatest predator was itself. This forced an evolutionary arms race unlike any other. It wasn't just about being strong, it was about being clever. It wasn't just about being fast, it was about endurance. It was about cooperation, deception, strategy, and relentless, indomitable will. The DNA of a Cathar was a placid library of poetry and mathematics. The DNA of a human is a grimoire, a war manual written in blood and fire over 3 billion years. Every human walking today is the unbroken lineage of survivors. They are the children of the ones who ran the fastest, who fought the hardest, who were too stubborn to die. They carry within their very cells the latent memory of the hunter, the warrior, the strategist, and the survivor. The aliens had archives. Humans are archives. When a Cathar faces a problem, it consults its ancient texts for a logical solution. When a human faces a problem, their entire biology kicks into a gear the Cathar no longer possess. Adrenaline floods the system, heightening senses, dulling pain. The prefrontal cortex, the seat of logic, works in tandem with the amygdala, the seat of fear and aggression, creating a state of hyper-aware, creative problem-solving that is terrifyingly effective. They don't just think their way out of a problem, they fight their way out. Ilara's smile was the quiet acknowledgement of this inheritance. Vorlag saw a young girl from an infant civilization. Ilara knew she was the heiress to a legacy of conflict and survival so vast and so brutal it was incomprehensible to him. He was proud of his species' 10,000-year peace. She was the vessel of a 100,000-year war. He saw her as weak because she was emotional. She knew her emotions, fear, anger, love, were not liabilities, they were fuel. Fear could be channeled into caution. Anger could be focused into resolve. Love, the most potent fuel of all, could make a mother lift a burning vehicle off her child. What is the equivalent in your life? It is your past, your failures, your heartbreaks. The times you were betrayed, the times you fell flat on your face, the scars you try to hide. You look at them as sources of shame, as evidence of your weakness. You see them as your flawed history. That is a lie. Every failure was a lesson in what doesn't work. Every betrayal taught you to be a better judge of character. Every scar is a testament to the fact that you were wounded, but you healed. You are still here. Your past is not a chain holding you back. It is a forge that has tempered you. The hardships you endured gave you strength you would never have found in a life of ease. You must stop seeing yourself as a victim of your past and start seeing yourself as a graduate of it. It was your training ground. It was your crucible, and it has made you far more powerful than you realize. Embrace it, all of it, the darkness and the light, just as Ilara embraced the memory in that medical bay. It wasn't a happy memory, it was a grim one. But it was the moment she understood her own nature and the nature of her species. It was the moment she met the monster within and realized it was simply the guardian of the will to live. Back in the conclave, the silence stretched, becoming a tangible force. Vorlag's resonant tones had gone flat, his crystalline form seeming to shrink. He could feel the eyes of the other delegates on him, and for the first time in centuries, they were not filled with deference. They were filled with a dawning, chilling understanding. The silence was finally broken, not by Ilara, but by the delegate from the shill. A being of pure, crystalline logic, its form a complex lattice of glowing geometry. It did not speak with a voice, but projected its thoughts directly into the minds of everyone present, a wave of cold, unassailable data. Analysis. The High Ambassador's query was predicated on a flawed assumption. The assumption that the act of killing is an indicator of primitive barbarism. This is incorrect. The data from human history, when cross-referenced with their biological and psychological profiles, presents a different conclusion. The shill's thoughts were precise, cutting through the emotional tension like a diamond blade. Observation: most species in this consortium who engage in warfare do so from a distance. Ship-to-ship combat, orbital bombardment, drone strikes. The act is sanitized, impersonal, an abstraction of energy transfer and material destruction. The individual soldier rarely witnesses the direct consequence of their action. A ripple of uneasy agreement went through the chamber. Observation: humanity has perfected this form of warfare as well. However, their history is unique. It is replete with personal, visceral conflict, hand-to-hand, blade-to-blade, a level of direct, individual violence that most other species find evolutionarily abhorrent. We classified this as a weakness, an inability to rise above primal instinct. The shill paused, its crystalline structure pulsing with a new, more intense light. New conclusion: this is not a weakness. It is a capacity. To kill from a distance requires technology. To kill up close, to look your enemy in the eye and still function, still strategize, still survive, that requires a different kind of strength. A psychological resilience. A mastery of the self that we have not accounted for. The shill delegate turned its focus to Vorlag, and the thought it projected was sharp enough to shatter glass. The High Ambassador asked the human if she had killed. Her smile was not an admission of guilt or pride. It was a confirmation of capability. The human species does not fear the act of killing. They have integrated it. They understand it as a potential necessity for survival. This makes them not barbaric. It makes them dangerous. It makes them complete. The final word hung in the collective consciousness of the conclave. Complete. Final analysis. The shill concluded, its light now bathing the entire chamber. We have been debating whether humanity is worthy of joining us. This is the wrong question. The correct question is, can the consortium afford for them not to join us? To leave a species with this demonstrated capacity for adaptation, resilience, and controlled lethality outside of our sphere of influence would be a strategic error of catastrophic proportions. Their so-called weakness, their volatile, conflict-driven nature, is the very quality that will allow them to face threats that our own sterile peace has left us unprepared for. We have been trying to judge a predator by the standards of prey. I move to grant the Sol Confederacy probationary membership, effective immediately. The vote was a mere formality. The motion passed with near unanimity. Vorlag abstained, his resonant silence the most telling admission of defeat. He had tried to expose humanity as a broken, primitive child. Instead, Alara's smile had revealed that the consortium was a fragile old man, and that a storm was coming that only humanity knew how to weather. So what does this mean for you? Right now in your life you are in that chamber, and the universe, your circumstances, your own inner critic, they are all Vorlag. They are asking you a question. Are you really strong enough? Are you capable? Look at your past, look at your flaws. You're too weak, too emotional, too damaged. They want you to cry. They want you to get angry. They want you to deny it, to crumble, to prove them right. Your job is to smile. Not a fake smile, not a happy smile. Your job is to dredge up the memory of every time you have been knocked down and gotten back up. Every failure you survived. Every heartbreak that didn't break you. Every moment you were backed into a corner and had to fight your way out. You must channel the quiet, grim, absolute certainty of the survivor. Your smile says, you have no idea what I've walked through to get here. You have no idea of the power I have forged in fires you are too afraid to even imagine. Your question is not an insult. It's an irrelevance. This is not a call to become a monster. It is a call to integrate your power. The world doesn't need more harmless people. It needs more good people who are dangerous. Dangerous to tyranny. Dangerous to injustice. Dangerous to the entropy that seeks to pull everything good into ruin. So here is your actionable command. Here is your takeaway from the silence that fell in the Xylo's conclave. First, you must go into the basement of your own mind and meet the part of you that you have locked away. The anger, the aggression, the primal will to survive. You will not kill it. You will not starve it. You will look it in the eye and you will come to an understanding. You will tell it, you are mine. You do not control me. I control you. You are the engine, but I hold the wheel. You are the fire, but I direct the forge. From now on, we work together. This is the act of integration. It is terrifying, and it is necessary. Second, you must reevaluate your history. Take out a piece of paper and write down your 5 greatest failures or hardships, the things that bring you the most shame. Now, next to each one, I want you to write the strength you gained from it, the betrayal that taught you discernment, the bankruptcy that taught you resilience, the rejection that taught you self-reliance. Your history of weakness is your catalog of strengths. Read it until you believe it. This is your arsenal. Finally, you must change your posture in the world. Stop walking around as if you are apologizing for taking up space. Stop speaking as if you need permission to have an opinion. You are not a guest in your own life. You are the sovereign. This does not mean being loud or arrogant. Look at Alara. Her power was in her quiet, calm, unshakable self-possession. It was a strength so deep it didn't need to be announced. It just was. Carry yourself as a person who has faced their own inner monster and won its allegiance. Carry yourself as someone who knows that they have the capacity to handle whatever life throws at them, not because they are perfect, but because they are a survivor. The galaxy is full of threats, both seen and unseen. So is your life. You can choose to be like the Cathar, living in a fragile peace built on the denial of your own nature, waiting for the first real crisis to shatter your world. Or you can choose to be human. You can be like Alara. You can acknowledge the fire and the darkness within you, not as a source of shame, but as the engine of your resilience. You can accept that your scars are a testament to your strength. You can stand tall in the conclave of your own life, and when the universe asks you if you have what it takes, you don't have to say a single word. Just smile and let the room go quiet.